Let's travel back in time for a minute. Imagine it's 1802. America is this brand new, kind of fragile republic, and the echoes of the French Revolution, with all its chaos and terror, are still being felt all the way across the Atlantic. It's in this really uncertain climate that a book gets published, a book that claims to expose a secret plot to change the entire world. So today, we're going to crack open that very book and take a look at one of America's earliest and, most influential conspiracy theories. Okay, so this is it. This is the document at the heart of our whole story. Proofs of the existence and dangerous tendency of Illuminism, written by a guy named Seth Payson. This thing wasn't just a book, it was basically a fire alarm in print. Payson was claiming he had solid proof of what he called an infernal combination, a secret society with a pretty terrifying goal: to completely abolish Christianity and all government, not just in Europe, but everywhere. And wow, Payson does not waste any time setting the mood. This quote is right from the preface. He's not talking about some far-off threat or a philosophical debate. No, he's arguing that a deliberate, methodical, and active plot is happening right now to tear down the very pillars of society. It's such a powerful way to open, and it immediately tells his readers that he believes the world is in very, very real danger. All right, so who exactly was supposedly behind this systematical attempt? In this first part, we're going to dive into the group that Payson points his finger at, the masterminds of this whole global conspiracy. And he gives them a name that has, well, really echoed through history: the Illuminati. You really have to get what Payson meant by Illuminism to understand the fear he was tapping into. For him, this wasn't just some philosophy club. It was an ideology being used like a weapon. He describes it as a secret order that was literally built on lies, a system specifically designed to hide its true, destructive purpose. The end goal, as he lays it out, is pure chaos, the total destruction of church and state, all achieved through really careful, calculated deception. And every good conspiracy theory needs a villain, right? A mastermind pulling all the strings. For Payson, that man was Adam Weishaupt. And it's a really crucial detail that Weishaupt was this respected academic, a professor of canon law, no less. Payson's whole argument is that Weishaupt used this respectable position, his access to young, impressionable students, as the absolute perfect cover. He wasn't just some radical shouting on a street corner. He was someone who could use the authority of a university to start building his secret army. Now, according to Payson, getting people to join wasn't a random process. It was this highly structured, artful seduction. It all started with these really noble ideas, appealing to things like reason and tolerance and humanity. Who's going to say no to that? The next move was brilliant: infiltrate the already established and respected network of Masonic lodges. Once you're in, recruits would be led through these advancing grades, kind of like leveling up in a game. And with each new level, the real, more radical ideas would be slowly revealed, until the person was so deep in, they were totally committed to the final secret mission. And this is the key takeaway, the absolute heart of the matter. The dissection wasn't just a tactic, it was the whole system. Payson really hammers this home. From the very first invitation to the final shocking revelation, the entire thing was a bundle of lies. Those noble ideals they pitched at the beginning, just bait. It's this idea of a sinister truth hiding under a friendly mask that made the whole thing seem so incredibly dangerous to his readers. Okay, so we've got the who and the how. But what was the point of it all? What was the endgame? Well, according to Payson, it was nothing less than total global revolution. And he believed he had the perfect, terrifying case study to prove it: the French Revolution. And we're not talking about just tweaking a government here or challenging one church. No. Payson's book claims the Illuminati's ambition was, well, absolute. The goal was a universal revolution, a worldwide effort to bring down every single monarchy and every religious institution and replace them with something else. Of course, what that something else was is left kind of vague, which only makes the destructive part sound even scarier. And this timeline? This is everything for Payson's argument. He draws this perfectly straight line from Weishaupt founding the order in 1776 to its supposed infiltration of Masonic lodges, and then boom, the French Revolution explodes in 1789. For Payson and his audience, this was no coincidence. It was a clear story of cause and effect. The revolution wasn't some spontaneous uprising, it was the first big win for a meticulously planned 13-year conspiracy. So that's a huge claim. How on earth did he try to prove it? Well, he starts connecting some dots for his readers. He claims that secret agents from Germany were sent to guide the French lodges, kind of like handlers. He points to the radical Jacobin clubs, the political engine of the Reign of Terror, and says, see, that was the Illuminati's command center. The revolution's violent attacks on the church were, for him, the smoking gun, absolute proof of the order's anti-Christian mission. He even weaves the American Revolution into it, suggesting that French officers came back from America with these new ideas about liberty, which made them the perfect targets for the Illuminati's recruitment. And that right there brings us to the real reason this book was even written. For Seth Payson, the French Revolution wasn't just a scary story from across the ocean. It was a preview of coming attractions. He was absolutely convinced that the same conspiracy that had toppled France was now spreading to the United States, and this book was his desperate attempt to wake up his fellow Americans.
Yeah, contagious poison. That phrase just says it all, doesn't it? It frames this whole thing not as a set of ideas you can debate, but as a sickness that spreads silently and infects the country. And the warning is urgent. He's not saying this could happen here. He's screaming this is happening here, right now, and it's spreading like wildfire. It's that sense of immediate danger that must have been so terrifying back in 1802. So how was this poison being spread? Well, Payson argues it was the exact same two-faced strategy they supposedly used in Europe. Publicly, the groups he was suspicious of were pushing for these popular, great-sounding goals. I mean, who's going to argue with reform or reason or liberty? But he claimed that was just a mask for the real, secret goals, promoting atheism, overthrowing the government, and kicking off a revolution just like the one in France. This idea of a hidden agenda really played on the public's fear of secret societies.
So Payson lays out a kind of spot the conspirator checklist for his fellow Americans. First, watch out for secret clubs doing their work in the shadows. Second, a campaign of fake news spreading crazy lies with total confidence to confuse everyone. Third, a clever bit of misdirection. Publicly blame some other group, like people with British influence, to throw everyone off their scent. And finally, quietly passing around radical books, like Thomas Paine's The Age of Reason, to slowly chip away at people's faith and patriotism.
All right, so let's zoom out. It's been over 200 years. What are we supposed to make of all this now? In this last part, let's step back from the specific claims and just think about the book's lasting importance. Why does a document like this still matter today?
So, was any of it actually true? Well, in the long run, that's not even the most interesting question to ask. The real value of a book like this is that it's a mirror. It perfectly reflects the anxieties of the time, the deep fears people had about political stability, about scary foreign ideas, and about whether this whole new American experiment in democracy could actually fail. This book is a historical artifact that shows us how a society, struggling with huge changes, tried to make sense of a chaotic world by imagining a hidden evil force was pulling the strings. And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. Seth Payson's book came out in 1802, but the basic template he used, this idea of a tiny secret group manipulating everything behind the scenes for their own sinister purpose, feels incredibly familiar, doesn't it? So why is this kind of story so powerful, so enduring? What is it about the idea of a hidden plan that continues to grab our imagination and fuel our anxieties even after all this time? It's definitely something to chew on.